As the summer break nears its close, we have a look back into the driver grade so far.
Hello and welcome back to the British Touring Car Podcast. Yes, we are back just before we return to Croft to start the second half of the season, and we'll be looking at how the drivers have performed so far in the opening 5 rounds of the championship. How was your off-season break been?
Busy.
Yeah.
There's always stuff to do with the podcast. As you'd have probably seen, hopefully seen, we've launched our 10 Minutes With series. If you've not checked out already, YouTube only, go and see us on there. They're only 10 minutes an episode. You can literally do it while going to the toilet in the morning.
How long do you spend on the toilet? 10 minutes. Oh, okay, fair enough.
Right. Okay, if you put your routine of going for a shower, going to the toilet, and maybe having a shave, the 3 S's, that will be 10 minutes.
That's fair enough. Yes, as Russ said, please do go and have a look over there on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe. Leave us a like as well. And leave us a comment on your feedback because they're fairly interactive and we'd love to hear your thoughts and feelings on all the subjects that we've covered. But back to today, we'll be getting into the driver grades after a little bit of news.
Yes, it's time to do the news. And this has been the most ridiculous off-season or summer break that I can remember.
Not much normally happens, does it?
Well, normally everybody goes on holiday and we see snaps of them in Ibiza or they'd be at Goodwood or there'd be a bit of historical racing and all that's happened.
And a little bit of tyre test.
Normally in there. Let's not forget the tyre test. Well, to quickly touch on that, yes, the tyre test did happen at Donington.
Donington, yeah.
Team Hard ran 2 rookies as part of their packages. I don't know who was top.
Ingram was quickest.
Was he?
Yes.
Brilliant. He's won the championship then. Let's all go home. Yeah. The tyre test is the tyre test. It's nothing to get excited about.
It's a good way to go and see the touring cars if you're not that interested in racing and the other bits that go with it over a touring car weekend.
Okay, yeah.
So normally it's free to get in and you have really good access to the backs of the garages. I remember I went...
You did go to Snetterton, didn't you? Yeah.
3 years ago to Snetterton or something. And I was actually lucky enough to go and stand up on the pit wall.
Yes.
Watching the cars come by. It was a brilliant experience. And although it is normally midweek, it is something to try and get a day off for to go and watch.
That is the year of Chatterer Boston, isn't it? Or the event you had at Chatterer Boston?
Possibly.
I think so.
I can't remember.
Anyway. Yeah, but yeah,
the slept since then.
In terms of does it lead anything to the rest of the season? No.
Not really.
But,
no.
Yeah.
But the big news.
Back on it baffles me that we have a tyre test. Like half through the season, the tyres aren't working. It's too late to test them.
Well, I think this year more relevant, being the fact that we have 3 different compounds chosen across different weekends and how they get to use them.
And how does the hybrid affect them?
Yeah. Go and watch our 10 Minutes With if you want to have our ideas on the hybrid. But yeah, the tyre tests this year I think has a little more prominence because we're seeing a bigger gap between the tyre types. I'm trying to hype it up, all right?
Well, let's go into stuff that actually is interesting. We have had let's go into stuff that actually is interesting. We have had a driver swap in the midst of a season.
Yeah. It's come out of absolutely nowhere as well.
Nobody saw this coming. Actually, the only thing I saw potentially coming was following Team Hard putting rookies out rather than Edwards at the tyre test. I wondered, okay, is she splitting? It's been a bad start to the season, or is it? I thought, is it a splitting issue, or more likely, is it a sponsorship issue, and therefore you have to buy the tyres, you have to buy all the bits and pieces,
or an experience thing for the younger drivers.
Yeah, it's part of the scholarship deal,
which is fairly normal in those sorts of things. But yeah, I think middle of last week, One Motorsport put up a post going, "We've parted ways with Will Powell in all respects, in his racing seat, in his managerial roles and such like," and we're like,
with immediate effect.
Something big's happened there,
definitely.
Which hasn't come to light yet, but I'm sure it probably will, maybe towards the end of the season. And we speculated for a few hours, didn't we, as to whether they would fill the seat and who would fill it. But we didn't have to wait long.
No, it's worth just saying who we both guessed. We both had a 3 guess each. You went for?
I went for Shedden.
Yeah.
With those
Wrong.
possible links, yes, with those possible links with dynamics that apparently should have been there from the start of the season.
Yeah.
Not that they've come to too much fruition by the looks of it.
I went for the touring car's forgotten man in Senna Proctor.
Yeah, wrong.
Yes. Yeah, Edwards was announced as we first got the announcement that she'd left Team Hard after an amicable split, and then about 5-10 minutes later, we got the news that she had made the trip or made the swap back to One Motorsport to replace Powell, who effectively placed her for this season anyway.
It was just enough time for you to put up a post
comment, yeah.
and comments, and then realise, oh, everything else has changed.
Everything's fine. I think it's a good move for Edwards that the hard stuff hasn't worked out in any way, shape, or form. You know, the car's not been great. She's not gelled with the car when on the few occasions it has worked. A split is probably best for all parties involved, and I think it probably is amicable. To be fair,
Yeah.
I just think it just didn't work out. The whole thing felt put together very hastily, very last minute to me, and I think that's shown on the track.
Yeah, and I get the feeling that she was very comfortable at BTC last season, and I think she'll be even more comfortable now with Moffat having gone over to the team.
Yeah, good friends with both him and Cook. Yeah.
So her Cook and Moffat, I think, will all get on really well, and they'll help each other out, and hopefully it will lead to a few better results for Edwards in the Civic.
Of course, that means that there was a seat to fill at Team Hard, and my first thought, to be honest with you, was they won't fill it. That was my first thought. They'll just go back to 5 cars. They've, have they overbitten slightly with running 6? I thought they'd pop themselves back down to 5. However, incorrect.
Again,
we're good on this podcast.
Yeah, we know everything.
We know everything because Daryl De Leon, I'm going to guess that's how it's.
Yeah, that's what I'd go for.
Is going to take over. 17 years old.
He's a very lucky man. He was the one
boy.
He obviously he won the scholarship.
Yes.
At the end of last year for Team Hard, and they very rarely put their scholarship winners straight into a big seed like this. And I think it's just because the chances have risen. There will be absolutely no pressure on him at all coming into such a big sport or such a big drive, that I think he's just going to be allowed to do a lot of learning in these 5 rounds.
Yep, it's worth mentioning that he has been in the British Endurance Championship in a Porsche GT3. Obviously, it's not exactly the same as a touring car, but he has got racing experience. I am slightly surprised that they've gone for him in the base that there is a whole conveyor belt effectively of hard drives that they could have gone for. But it's good to see him giving a rookie a shot, and that means obviously with Patterson as well. That's they've got 2 very young drivers at the start of their racing careers in that team, which is good to see. We'll see how he gets on. Yeah, you're right. There's no pressure. You're right. No. It doesn't matter what happens really.
And Team Hard have fed quite a few drivers into the series. Some more successful than others, but we'll wait and see how he progresses through the season.
I think that pretty much concludes the news. I'm just checking to see if there's anything we have missed, but I don't think so. Obviously, BTC have been at Goodwood. Team Hard's car, that was very nice indeed.
It was. That was a lovely livery.
It's like the Porsche livery, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nice black, gold, and white livery.
Worth going to catch up with Festival Speed, watching all sorts of various cars going up and down the hill at Goodwood. I think it's something that we'll probably have to go do at some point.
We keep saying we were supposed to go this year and then completely sort of forgot all about it. Yeah. So maybe next year we can go put on.
We'll work out some tickets for that next year.
Is that the one we have to dress up and put on Peaky Blinder caps?
No, that's the Revival.
No, that's the Revival. That's fine.
So no, the Speed is all about the cars rather than the event as a whole.
And actually, just on that, before we go into the driver grades, if you want to see Jason Plato's take on the Hyundai that went straight off at turn 1, go to his Twitter page. It's very funny.
Right then, let's get into the grades for the season. And I think there's only really one place to start, and that is with the man at the top of the championship in Ashley Sutton. Yeah, it's been a struggle of a season for him. I mean, he's been really fighting hard. No, it's an A for him at the moment. The only driver on the list to be at an A, leading the championship. The only criticism we might have is he's not leading it by more.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly fair. He's had smashes at the start line at Donington and at Alton Park, which could have both been avoided, and that could have left him high in the championship. But as we looking at the moment, he has got 6 wins to his name already.
Just a few.
Following 4 podiums, and he has scored points in all but 2 rounds where he retired both times off of the starting line. As you say, should be ahead by more than just 6 points. Mathematics.
Good at maths.
Yes, but it is an A. He's doing very well, and he is the man to catch. And we are going into circuits where he also does quite well at.
Yeah,
though he does well everywhere. To be fair,
he does. His teammate Hamish was sort of like looking to be in the title hunt at the start of the season. Had a good opening round at Donington.
Started pretty well.
Seems to have tailed off a little, and that's probably reflected in his mid-season grade of a C.
Yeah, I mean, he started pretty well. A double race win at Donington, and he followed that with a podium at Brands Indy. He's not had a podium since. I think that's crazy for that car. Okay, he had won the race at Snetterton, but got disqualified for trying. Well, didn't win the race, came second, but got disqualified for trying to launch himself to the moon over the curbs at the end of the Bentley Straight.
Love a ride height infringement, don't you?
I do indeed. That one is fine. Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, to not have had a podium in that car since Brands Hatch is quite mad. He's not been higher than 4th. And actually, that came at the end of Brands Hatch. So since Brands Hatch, his highest has been 5th.
Yeah. Yeah, it's surprising considering how dominant Sutton's been in the car. And at times, Robot, his teammate, has also showed some glimpses, taking a win and a podium since then. He's still only at a C this season. He had a disappointing time out at Brands. I think there's more to come from him.
Yeah, Robot, I think he's finding his confidence in the car and in himself in that way. But there's been some great moments for Robot this season, and there's been some really quite poor moments. You think of the pit lane smash or pit straight smash at Brands Hatch.
Yeah.
And then you balance that with some of the fantastic overtakes he's done at Snetterton. It all sort of balances itself out a bit at SC. I think there's a good driver in there. I think he just needs to, for the second half of the season, really focus in on bringing the car home for as many points as possible and just learning to mitigate risk slightly.
Very much so. Osborne, the final one of the Napa Fords, not leading the Jack Sears, which I think is probably the biggest disappointment of his season so far. He had a really bad weekend out at Thruxton, which we gave him an E for. But overall, we've got him at a C, and it's probably a lowish C.
It's been a season of 2 halves for him at the minute. The opening couple of rounds really good. Got a podium, obviously, in the wet race at Donington.
Yeah.
He scored points for 5 races on the bounce as well, which is really good. That's a really good streak for anyone. And then, unfortunately, he's not scored points since Snetterton, apart from once Autumn.
Final race at Autumn where he just snuck into the points.
Yeah, and the disappointing thing is those non-points finish, he's not been close to the points either.
No.
I don't know where to put Osborne. He can't be in the Jack Sears next year because he has taken his podiums. This is his one and only shot at it. And as you say, that car and that team and his experience, because he's one of the more experienced in that pool, he should be winning it.
Yep, very much so. Moving on to the Hyundais then. Ingram, who has had probably the most consistent grades all season, has had a B at every round, and funnily enough, we've got him at a B for the mid-season.
Yeah, so he scored points in every race of this season, and the lowest finish so far is 9th, which is incredible. 1 win, and then he's taken 8 podiums.
Good counting.
I can't do it that quick. 8 podiums, 1 win, and lowest finish of 9th, which happened twice. So to finish inside the top 10 for every race of the season is
pointsy,
and that is why he is only 6 points behind Ash Sutton.
Yep, very much so. His teammate, should I start that again?
I would.
His teammate Chilton has got a C so far this year for us. Had a good starting weekend in Donington. Obviously, fortunate in the wet race. Made a good decision.
You say fortunate, I'd say wily. He made the call. He made the call.
He did.
He made the call. Experience told.
But since then, he scored a C at every round, giving him a C overall. I'd like to see a little bit more of that early season pace, because I thought he'd possibly turn a little bit of a corner.
Well, I'm making this very statsy. I've been inspired by the man on the BBC who does the cricket. He has got a win, obviously, as you mentioned, but he's not finished higher than 7th since Brands Hatch race number 3. He's not been inside the top 10 since then.
Wow. but only 2 non-point scores.
Yeah, he's been
which is much better than last season.
Yeah, I think he's found himself a bit more in the car this year and found himself in a bit more of a comfortable zone. But I think he does need to convert a few more top tens.
Yeah. Pearson, his teammate, fighting in the Jack Sears, probably not as high as he might have expected to be. Some unlucky and some poor performances along the way. Just gets him a C, but he is only just. He's had a couple of Ds at Donington and Alton. I'm kind of expecting a little bit more from him for the rest of the season.
Yeah, 5-point scores, one retirement and one disqualification for the ridiculous. That was the ridiculous ride height failure at Donington. 13 points scored overall, which in your debut season isn't bad, to be fair to him. But as you say, he's there or thereabouts with the points more often than not, which is good in his rookie season. It is good. There's been a couple of mistakes as well. There was that ludicrous attempted overtake at Alton Park where he tried to fire himself around the outside of everybody at the old hairpin and didn't work.
Ran wide.
Yes, yeah, very much so. But he's certainly been the more impressive of the rookies in that team. His counterpart, Nick Halstead, rock bottom of the championship on -6 points. He's had more engines this season than anybody else, I believe.
Yep.
He has scored points in one race, which was Donington. Unfortunately for him, he's on minus points because of those engine changes. Too many retirements, that's the problem, or too many just down the end of the order. I think the one that did it for me was Seston, where Tom Chilton caught him up and overtook him when Chilton had to come into the pit lane in the first couple of laps. And that was effectively a lap down. He unlapped himself, Chilton, and then still over to finish ahead of him, which is never great.
Yeah, there's a big pace issue there, and I think moving into the second half of the season, we just want to see more consistently, probably inside the top 20. I don't think, apart from that point scoring finish, he's only had one other 20. Inside the top 20.
20th and 19th.
So yeah, there's definitely room for improvement there.
Agreed.
Moving on to the BMWs then at West Surrey Racing. Turkington has got a B so far this season, although a stunning time last time out at Alton Park earned him an A star. He seems to have quietly but cautiously got better.
Yeah, so he's had 2 wins, 3 podiums. He's finished in the points in every race, which is very important when contesting this championship. He does currently sit 4th. He's got quite a gap on Camish at this stage, so he's on 183 points. Camish is on 160, so that's a 23-point gap. And I think already you only have those top 4 contesting the championship.
Yeah.
He's a fair way back to Sutton. There's roughly 30-point difference between him and Sutton. But yeah, he's finishing races well. The BMW doesn't look particularly quick this season, I don't think. Alton Park, he did really well to fight back through the field, but I don't know. His racecraft was certainly much improved at Alton Park. He's certainly willing to get his elbows out, which I think he's going to have to do more often than not this season because I don't think the car's quite there.
No, I think setup's been something that the BMWs have struggled with this season, including Hill as well. He also gets a B for a fantastic last round out at Alton. He's had some mediocre rounds and very average rounds with a few little highlights in there.
2 wins, 3 podiums. All those podiums were second places. And he has also scored points in every race this season, apart from 2, where Donington, the wet dry race, and Brands Indy, he had a problem as well.
Yep. Morgan, his teammate then, freshly into that WSR outfit. He's on a C. He's been steadily growing in that car for me.
3 podiums, which I think is not bad on your debut season at that car, in that team, sorry. He's finished in the points in all but 3 rounds, of only 1 retirement. I think that retirement of Brands India was who caught in the start line, smashed with Rowbottom and Jelly. A steady scoring of points. Top 10 of the championship at the minute, sitting 7th. It's been a good, solid start from.
It's kind of the place we expect Morgan to be, isn't it? Around 7th in the championship.
No, I think he should be above Cook personally.
Yeah,
given the cars, but yeah.
Jelly, however,
he's
having a jelly season, and being a jelly season, there are okay weekends followed by bad weekends followed by bad weekends normally, and he is sitting on a D so far.
When he finishes, he finishes quite well.
Yeah, but he doesn't finish very often.
He's had 8 non-finishes. 1 did not start this season. So that's 9 effectively where he's not scored points.
Yeah.
But when he has scored points, 4th, 3, 6, 10th, and a 13th. So when he scores pretty well generally.
Mhm.
He's just not scoring enough.
No, it'll be quite a disappointment for him this season. I think he'd be expecting more, and maybe the team would be expecting a little bit more as well.
He's like an opening batter for an Ashes cricket side, isn't he? For England in particular, that when he does get in and score, it's
Yeah.
quite handy and it's
Yeah,
quite good to
yeah, yeah.
have. But you just know there's a silly dismissal around the corner somewhere from wafting.
Yeah. Not always his fault, though.
No, it's not, and I think he must have the worst luck on the entire grid. I think.
Yeah, it certainly feels like that sometimes.
Absolutely.
Moving on then to the Toyota Gazoo Racing boys, we've got Butcher with a C. A little bit underwhelming so far this season,
Very much so.
especially considering your possible dark horse for the title.
The thing is, when I said that, you didn't say I was mental.
No.
So-
The quality in the driver is certainly there.
And the car should be there.
The
I
car
don't
should
know
be
what's
there.
happened. The car
Yeah.
should be there with his own engine as well.
Yeah.
He has scored 1 podium this season. He has also had 2 non-points finishes, 1 retiring, 1 16th. Just when he has scored points, he's sort of been the bottom end of the top 10. I just expect him to be challenging at least around 5th, 4th, 3rd, and he just hasn't.
Toyota just doesn't seem to have the pace of those top 3 cars.
No, unless it's in the hands of Ricky Collard, who is below him in the championship and hasn't got a podium. Technically, perhaps might have had a win, but listen to our episode on track limits on 10 minutes with. But Ricky Collard, 2 retirements, but finished in the points every other race. I think he's been the most impressed about the 3, to be honest with you. He's looked quickest and he's looked willing to push to its limits.
Yeah, his raw speed is looking promising.
Yeah.
And I think he's probably glad that he made the decision to come back again this season, rather than chucking it all in and going and doing something else. We've given him a B so far, but I think there's more to come.
I agree. I think there is more to come, and I think he will get a podium for the end of the season.
Yeah.
Whether he keeps it or not is another question, but I think he does get on the podium. I think he does get on the podium again this season.
Yeah. Gamble, his teammate, then coming into the team newly this season, has certainly struggled out of the 3 of them.
I'll say.
Being caught up in a few incidents along the way, and he's only just to see. Had some poor weekends at Snetton and Thruxton.
9 non-finishes, including a run of 6 in a row. I think that is 7 in a row.
No points scored.
7 in a row of no points scored.
That's quite a big issue, really, isn't it?
It is, and Gamble really impressed last year at times in that BMW with car gods with Adam Morgan as teammate. He's gone under the radar a bit this year but in the worst way, i.e. that he's just been a bit, just not been there, just not really been firing, just not really, been noticed. Do you know what I mean?
Highest finished of 8th is not really what we expect to see. I kind of think he should be looking to pick out a podium or 2 towards the end of the season. And I think we need to see some good improvements from him.
He's not even qualifying well either on the whole.
No.
But that's a problem as well.
Yeah. Moving on then to One Motorsport. We'll pick up
now. That's what it's called for now.
Team leader Josh Cook, and he's slowly but surely working a little bit of pace into the car. And he's being very consistent, and I'd be surprised if he's, having not looked at the stats, be surprised if he's finished outside that top 7th to 11th bracket more than 4 times.
Good call. He's finished out of the points twice. He's also picked up a double podium. That was at Thruxton. And he has finished inside the top 10 when he scored points all but once.
Yeah.
And then he scored 11th on that
consistency,
isn't it? He is very consistent.
Consistently 7th, best of the rest after the 3 top cars. And
yes, but you have to remember that although they've now got an engine this year, they haven't got a chassis this year. So you've got to take it into consideration.
He does get a B so far, but I think he always wants more. He seems to be one of the grumpiest drivers on the grid because he's not getting exactly what he wants.
He's very competitive and he wants to win.
Yes.
He wants to be the champion. He wants to be fighting for championships. And every time they come to the grid where they think they've got a car to do it, there's just a couple of teams that have just gone that extra few notches up. They're always a couple of notches behind.
Certainly are. Moving on to Moffat then, who moved across to the team at the start of the season. He had a mixed start to the season. Some good performances, one fairly bad performance at Brands, where he didn't score many points, if at all.
He scored twice at Brands.
Oh, did he? Oh. But he's got a C overall. I was kind of expecting a little bit more, although it is his first season back in a front-wheel drive car.
He has got a podium to his name for the season, and he has finished in the points all but 5 times.
Okay.
But when he has finished in the points, they tend to be the lower end of the points.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that there are potentially some problems at One Motorsport which might be linked to recent events, might not be.
Possible.
Who knows? We'll see what the second half brings.
Yeah. Powell then, teammate and ex-driver now at One Motorsport. He has got a D overall for this season. No real pace from him. Caught up in incidents, some fairly big repair bills on his side of the garage, and just has failed to deceive.
Flattered to deceive.
That's exactly what I meant. Flattered to deceive.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he hasn't scored a point all season. He's one of only 3 drivers who are in that bracket. 4 if you count the fact the house is on -6, but he did score points.
Yeah.
2 new retirements for Powell. Although I did think actually that as the season was progressing, he was getting more to grips with the car, and he was more. There was the Alton Park there in that pack, all racing together. Yeah. So I do think that the car was coming to him a little bit. Obviously, we're not going to see how the rest of the season plays out, unfortunately. But I'm going to go on a limb and say if he was to complete the rest of the season, I think he would have scored a point. I think the car was coming to him, and I think he was improving in the series.
I just think it was unfortunately bookended by too many trips to the gravel.
Yeah, I can understand that, but as I say, I think that
whether that be qualifying or races.
Yeah, I get that, but I think that there was a change coming. But
yeah. Moving over to Team Hard then, and Bobby Thompson has had some brilliant performances in that Cupra, mainly at Brands Hatch, where he popped a podium.
Correct.
And he's got a B so far this season. Struggled a little bit at Snetton and Thruxton, but has certainly been the best of those Team Hard drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. He has unfortunately got a big spattering of retirements, though. He is not points scored in 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 races so far, which I think unfortunately at times goes hand in hand with the Team Hard reliability problems that they tend to exhibit. Good pace. He's a good qualifier. He's got really good 1-lap speed in that car. It's just, I think, struggle to keep it in the race, competitive in the race. Although that podium, I think that there could be another podium for the end of the season coming his way.
Yeah, I do wonder whether Matt Neal being in and around that garage, along with the man who I can't think of his name from Dynamics, one of the team engineers who's also moved over there, I think that might have had a little bit of a bearing on that 1-lap race pace or qualifying pace for the Team Hard Cupras, because they do seem to make a few surprises in qualifying.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he sits 14th in the championship. He's fighting, obviously, for the independence title. That is falling a little bit away now because of the fact that Cook finishes more often than not. See what the second half brings for Thompson in that Cupra.
Yeah, Lloyd then alongside him, his teammate, gets a C so far this season. Less standout performances, but I think a little bit more consistency from him. No?
Well,
so the stats not back that
not
up?
really. He's not finished, or he's not scored points. 7 either, so...
Okay.
Yeah.
The car looks good sometimes. The car looks bad sometimes.
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe...
I think towards the back end of the season, they need to start finishing more races.
Yeah, agree.
Certainly. Within the points, probably looking from, 8th to 12th area is where they need to be finishing. Boutel in another Cupra gets a D so far this season, and he, for me, has really struggled. I thought he would be the 3rd fastest hard driver. Obviously, you thought slightly differently.
Correctly.
But yeah, he's struggled a little bit more this season. I don't know whether it's because of that move to Team Hard.
Yeah, as you say, no points scored this season. The closest he's come is a 16th. He has only had 2 retirements, which is good. He's a consistent finisher, and that helps with the Jack Sears effort. Um, and actually, he's been in and around the points a couple of times. A few 17ths, a few 18ths chucked in there as well. Is it the car? Is it him? I don't know.
Just a little bit more needed.
I can't make my mind up on Jack Boutel.
No, he's a difficult driver to judge.
He really impressed me in his first season with Mac Tools in that Mercedes. But since then, you can't say he's not a rub of the green with the cars and teams either, really. He's in a Hyundai that won a championship.
Yeah.
He's in a car here that's taking podiums.
Yeah. Although not consistently.
Okay, but they've taken enough podiums for him to have won, or to have got a race, not a race win, a point score. Yeah, they've done enough. That car's done enough for him to score points.
Yeah, I certainly think that he should have had some points on the board by now. Yeah. His teammate, though, does have points on the board, Nick Hamilton.
10 of them.
After that brilliant, inspired decision at Donington when it went wet. And it's probably going to be the highlight of his year. He gets a C overall because we've seen some surprising, at times, amount of pace from him.
Yeah, I think sticking with the car that he was in last year has helped. I think he's been in that team for a while now as well, so he's used to the way it all works.
Yeah.
And I think that he's improving the car and himself all the time. Obviously, points scored this season, it puts him on 10, which is fantastic. And yeah, he's only had 1 retirement. He's been about where you'd expect him to be finish-wise, but he's not been horrendously off the pace. Last year, he was often quite far back off the rest of the pack.
Yep.
This year, he's been racing within it quite a lot. So
yeah, certainly has. And probably the standout of the Jack Sears drivers being Patterson, leading the championship. And although he's had consistently C's throughout the season so far from us, we're giving him a B overall just because he is leading that Jack Sears championship.
Yep.
And that consistency, not just in finishing the races, but finishing the races ahead of his rivals in that championship, what's pushed him to the top of it.
If I can add to that as well, 7 points finishes in the BTC proper.
Yep.
No retirements, which is absolutely crucial to winning or to doing well in the Jack Sears.
Very much so.
Lowest finish of 22nd, which in the 27 car grid's not bad. I think that's only the one time he's finished down there.
Yep.
And then he's been in around about 17th, 16th, 18th. So he's always there on the cusp of points.
Yeah, he's normally that car that's just waiting for those people to make that mistake, just on the bottom end of the points when they're all battling together.
He's also had a run of 4 points finished on the bounce, which I think when you're at that end of the grid is quite impressive.
Yes.
I think generally he races well and he races sensibly. I'm very impressed with him, as regular listeners will know.
Moving on to Edwards then in that other Cupra.
This was so hard to grade. This is the hardest I think I've ever had to grade since we've done this podcast, because the car hasn't been good.
No.
She's not gelled with it, and she's not racing it enough. That's the problem with the first weekend, DNS, non-contested, retired. We've then had a further DNS, and we've had a further 4 retirements.
Yeah.
How do you judge?
No, it is really difficult to judge her. We've given her a D. Because obviously the opening weekend at Donington, the car rarely got any running at all. Had a really poor showing at Thruxton, where I think you and I both thought is a favoured circuit of hers, and we might see a little bit of progress.
Let's not forget, of course, at the start of the season, she wasn't able to test.
No. Very much came into the season in the same way that Parfit did last year.
Yeah, there's lots of similarities.
But Alton was a decent weekend out for her, and hopefully the move back to One Motorsport will satisfy her, and being back in the Civic will be a much more comfortable environment for her.
Highest finish of 16th, which is at Alton Park, so only 1 place off the points. But yeah, it's so hard to grade her for this season, because she's not had any chance to show what she can do, because the car's just not worked with her.
No. Moving on then to the Power Max boys and a couple of newbies. First of all, Doble. A B for him overall. I'm pleasantly surprised by both the newbies here.
I think
And
PMR as a whole, I think
yeah,
quite good.
the car overall, we thought it's getting to the end of its years, and it is pleasantly surprised. So he's taken a couple of Bs in Snetton and Thruxton, taken a Jack Sears weekend win along the way, and he's in the battle for it.
He absolutely is. Only one retirement, 8 non-finishes including the retire. Or sorry, 8 non-points finishes including the retirement. But again, when he's not finishing the points, generally he's been around about those sort of between 16th and 20th, so around about the points playing positions. He's not been ridiculously off the pace.
Nope.
He's not looked out of sorts. He's not looked out of his depth.
Nope.
He's looked very comfortable in this series.
Yeah, and as you've mentioned previously before, when you're in a car like that, battling for Jack Sears, he's had 6 points finishes in a row there, which always help towards that.
And of course, sorry, just to add into that, a 5th in his first season. Okay, yes, the wet, dry conditions, but he read them well and he got a 5th.
Got to make the most of them.
Absolutely.
Watson was another driver who made the absolute most of that opening weekend, and was one of the standout drivers. He also gets a B so far this season, although he had almost a slump compared to the opening weekend for a couple of rounds.
Yeah, 8 non-points finishes in a row.
Yeah, he's had some good work along the way, and I think the car might be on an upturn once again.
Yeah, 6 points finishes along the way, including a highest of 4th. Yeah, he's done well. He's done well. A bit of a slump in the middle of the first half of the season, which he seems to have arrested, and we'll see how we go in the rest of the season.
Yeah, and then the experienced individual there, Aaron Taylor-Smith, always happy-go-lucky, he seems to be in the paddock. He's had some good showings along the way as well. He takes a B as well.
Yeah, he's had 4 retirements. 1 did not start, but otherwise he's finished inside the top points playing places. And more often than not, he's been inside the top 10. And the only other 2 times outside of that, they've both been 12th. So he's looked good. All 3 of them had good pace. And if you want to fetch you some cream, I'll have my humble pie now about PMR. We had our doubts to whether they could go to a 3-car team. Sorry. I think we were slightly both underwhelmed with the lineup, having gone to a 3-star team, a 3-car team, 3-star, 3-car. I think we were both underwhelmed a little bit of the lineup when they went to a 3-car team.
Yeah.
But actually, they're doing pretty damn well.
They certainly are. And I think it'll be interesting to see how they kick on for the second half of the season, as it will be with a lot of other drivers on the grid that are either overperforming or ones that have so far flattered to deceive. Got it right that time.
You did.
And it'll be interesting.
I'm now going to chuck some questions at you weren't prepared for.
So God, here we go.
Right. Who is your driver of the first half of the season? Let's do the awards.
Sutton.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's just not for me.
The way that he's already taken 6 wins out of the opening, what have we had, 15 rounds? Thank you. It's just like, I didn't see it coming at the start of the season.
I'm going Ingram.
Okay.
On the basis that I think it'd be very easy to let your head drop when you've got someone that fast and that far out in front. And he's not. He's kept with him. He's kept knowing that all he can do at this moment in time is score as many points as he can to keep the gap as low as he can until they can find a way of getting the extra speed themselves to challenge him. And that's what he's done. To be at this point of Sutton having 6 wins and a further 4 podiums, to only be 6 points behind him, is incredible.
Do you know what the big thing for me is between those two so far this season? It's the biggest gap or biggest deficit Ingram has had in positions was that middle race at Snetterton, which was 6 places.
Yeah.
In the races that Sutton hasn't finished, he's had a 3rd and a 4th.
To maximise what he can.
And in the points paying positions that Sutton struggled, he's finished a good 3, 4, 5 positions ahead of him, which has kept that points total so close.
And this is what I mean. It'd be very easy to let your head drop and to maybe over push what you've got. Take Thruxton. He couldn't keep pace with Sutton in those 2 races. He had 2 options: either really push it to stupid limits and risk not finishing, or just keep the head in the game and finish second and just minimise. And that's what he's done.
Really annoy Josh Cook.
Really annoy Josh Cook. Yeah, but what he's done, he's kept the gap to 6 points. I think that's really impressive.
Yeah, it is.
Who is your villain of the first half of the season?
There are a couple of drivers that I feel should be doing quite a bit better. There are a couple of drivers that I expected to be doing not as well as they are.
Yep.
But the one that probably bucks that trend the most is Gamble for me.
Oh, okay.
I was expecting more from him. He had a good first season, albeit in a rear-wheel drive car, and I thought going into a team like Toyota, he'd have that almost big team atmosphere around him, that support where he needs it, trying to finesse setups and trying to work with Butcher and Collard, who have been in the car for a season together already. I thought he would be doing a little bit better than he is.
Fair enough. I can completely understand where you're coming from. I'm going Jelly. When it's good, it's good. When it's not good, it's not good.
No.
Villain might be too harsh of a term, but I don't know. I kind of expected them to be a bit more involved in taking points off other people, and that's not really happened. Hill and Turkington are clear, and Jelly is unfortunately the worst performing driver on paper at WSR this season.
Yep.
Yeah, he can't always be helped, but I was expecting this year to be a bit better.
Yeah.
Certainly to be at least closer to Morgan, if not ahead of him. Morgan being the first one, first season at the team.
Yeah.
So, surprise good.
Surprise good. Ooh, it's a tricky one. That is a really tricky one, actually. It's a really tricky
one, isn't
it? I would probably have to go Patterson. I didn't expect him to be leading Jack Sears halfway through the season.
See, it's not a surprise to me because I've been.
Yeah, I know you've been banging the drum for quite a while.
Mine's going to be Mikey Doble. Didn't know much about him when he came into the championship. Wasn't particularly overwhelmed when he was sort of announced. Come in, done a really solid job, fighting well at Jack Sears. He's scored points, 30 points at this stage in your debut season. Ain't half bad, is it?
No, not at all.
Ain't half bad. There's drivers that have been in there for several seasons that don't have 30 points scored overall.
Yeah.
So he's done really well. And then finally, you surprised bad.
Surprise bad would probably have to be Jelly.
Okay.
For all the reasons that you've said so far, he should be much further up there in the team that's got so much pedigree in the sport, but he has been incredibly unlucky.
Can I be really controversial with mine then? I'm going Dan Camish.
I thought you might go a Camish.
To set your stall out on the opening weekend with a double win.
Yep.
And then to be, in my mind, nowhere near the championship, you're 50 points down.
Yeah.
More than that, isn't it? It's effectively 60 points down.
Yep.
At halfway stage in a car that's won. How many races that car won overall? It's won 9 overall, wasn't it? 6, 2, and 1.
Yep. Yeah, it is a big gap. And I think when we went into the season, we were thinking maybe 5 or 6 maybe drivers that would be challenging for the title. That has certainly at the midway stage been filed down to 3, maybe 4.
I think it's 2, personally.
I know you do think it's 2, but I think there's a lot of BMW tracks yet to come in the season.
You're right on that point.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I thought Cameron should be closer, and he's not.
That's fair.
Well, that concludes the driver grades. Thank you very much for listening as always. We'll be back with a Croft preview shortly. Obviously, if you need to catch up with any content, there is the 10 Minutes With series. I think there's 4 or 5 videos on that now.
Yeah, there'll be 5, I think, by the time we've finished. We'll probably do some more. There'll be another small gap in the season, I think, between Donington and Silverstone.
Yep.
So we'll post a couple more in there. And we might even have a special vlog of when we go up Knock Hill.
Yeah, if we can get the equipment to work.
Yes, always down to the hardware. But yeah, please do subscribe, give us a like, leave a comment, and we'll be back with you again soon.
Bye for now. Oh, sorry. Bye!